I want you to think about the last time you felt a genuine sense of discomfort.
And we are not talking about physical pain here.
Right, no. I mean, that highly specific, subtle, almost hard to pinpoint feeling that something in your reality just doesn't quite fit.
It's like a tiny mental itch.
Exactly. And usually when you feel that little itch, your immediate reaction is to try and fix it. You search for an answer, you look for a label, or, you pull out your phone and just swipe past it to find something more familiar.
Which is completely natural.
Yeah, but what if the real problem with modern life isn't that you no longer experience discomfort? What if the underlying issue is that your discomfort vanishes before you even have the time to notice it?
That is the exact tension we are exploring today in this deep dive. And to unpack this, we are stepping into a deeply fascinating conceptual framework known as reflective humanism.
It's a really interesting perspective.
It really is. We are looking at a stack of contemporary philosophical notes and structural guidelines that analyze human cognition in the age of, well, instant information. And specifically, we are zeroing in on a foundational essay from these sources. It's simply labeled Document Number 91.
Yes, and document number 91 completely reframes how we process the unknown. But before we get going, I do want to set the tone for you listening. This is not a debate.
Right.
We are not trying to prove one side right or wrong here. And it is certainly not a self-help show offering you like 5 quick life hacks to optimize your daily routine.
Far from it. We are undertaking a shared exploration. Our goal today is to look at discomfort not as a cognitive error or nuisance, but as a vital, necessary pre-question signal.
A pre-question signal.
Yeah. If we want to understand why this signal is vanishing from our daily lives, we have to start by redefining what discomfort actually is right at the source before it even transforms into a conscious thought.
Let's dive into that pre-question state then. Because normally we are taught that a question is the absolute beginning of our intellectual process.
Right, the starting line.
Yeah, sit down, you formulate a question, you look for an answer, and then you learn something. It feels very simple and sequential.
And that is the standard linear model we are all used to. But the source material for reflective humanism argues that something essential and incredibly fragile happens before the question even forms.
Wait, before the question?
Yes. There is a subtle sense of friction, a faint trace that something is off. The documents describe this state as the earliest appearance of an unseen difference.
The earliest appearance of an unseen difference. Wow. So it isn't an answer.
No.
And it isn't a question. It's just a feeling of difference.
Exactly. And the framework posits that generating meaning isn't a fixed destination. You don't just arrive at a rigid evaluation of the world, like dropping a pin on a map and saying, this is good or this is bad.
Right.
Instead, human perception is viewed as a movement or a gradient. It is a continuous trajectory. So in this light, discomfort is simply the very first indication that the trajectory of your reality is shifting.
Okay, to help you visualize this at home, think about how discomfort functions, kind of like the faint crackling static on an old analog radio dial.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Imagine you have a vintage radio, and you are slowly turning the knob to find a station. For a long time, it's just silence or white noise.
Just scanning the frequencies.
Yeah, and then suddenly you hit this pocket of heavy crackling static. That static isn't just an annoying noise that you need to mute or fix immediately. That static is the very first signal that a station like a completely new reality, a new piece of music, or a new broadcast of information is actually there, waiting for you to tune into it.
That analogy captures the mechanics perfectly. The static is the literal evidence of interference, and reflective humanism uses the term interference quite deliberately to explain this. Well, the idea is that meaning does not exist in a vacuum. It is born at the exact point where different elements cross paths and interfere with one another. So the static on your mental radio is the interference pattern between your current understanding of the world and something entirely new that you haven't processed yet.
But to actually hear the station, you have to tolerate the static for a second. You have to keep turning the dial slowly. You can't just panic and shut the radio off the second you hear a crackle.
You have to hold the space. The document calls this vital holding period a state of suspension. You are suspended between not knowing and knowing.
That makes a lot of sense.
And this brings us to the core problem highlighted by document number 91. If this discomfort, this mental static, is this vital first signal of a new reality, why is the modern listener experiencing less and less of it?
The answer the sources provide is pretty stark, honestly. Our modern environment is aggressively, deliberately designed to erase it.
Yes, it is.
We are surrounded by systems that provide immediate, overwhelming explanations that hijack our cognitive processing the exact millisecond that discomfort appears.
We can actually trace this through a very specific cognitive shift. Let's look at how human cognition used to flow when we encountered something new. Let's call it the old sequence. And we can use a concrete example.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine you were reading a newspaper headline about a complex new global economic policy, something involving supply chains and international tariffs that you just don't fully grasp.
Okay, I am looking at the headline. I am confused. What happens in the old sequence?
First, there is a difference. The headline challenges what you thought you knew about the economy.
Right.
That difference immediately creates discomfort. You feel a bit defensive, maybe slightly ignorant, and historically, because you couldn't instantly Google the answer, you had to sit with that feeling.
You were stuck with it.
Exactly. That is the suspension. By holding that suspension, you create openness. Out of that openness, a genuine question emerges in your mind.
Okay, so difference, then discomfort, suspension, openness, and finally a question.
Yes. And that question drives exploration, maybe reading a book or asking a colleague. And finally, after all that work, you arrive at understanding.
That sounds like a rich, spiraling journey. Difference, discomfort, suspension, openness, question, exploration, understanding.
It is a whole process.
But that is not what happens when I read a confusing headline today.
Not at all.
Today, I see the headline, I feel the discomfort for a fraction of a second, and my thumb automatically swipes down to the comments section or opens the social media app. I look to see what commentators I already trust are saying about it.
You seek out the shortcut.
Exactly. I am handed an instant explanation. That explanation hardens into a stance, and boom, closure.
That is the new sequence detailed in document number 91. Difference, discomfort, explanation, stance, closure.
Wow, it really just skips the entire middle section.
It entirely obliterates the middle of the journey. The space for the question, the exploration, and the openness is just gone. Meaning is manufactured and delivered the exact moment the discomfort is felt.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here on behalf of everyone listening.
You go for it.
Because, honestly, human history is literally the pursuit of eliminating friction.
Sure.
We invented the wheel so we wouldn't have to drag heavy rocks across the dirt. We invented the calculator so we wouldn't have to do long division by hand. If an algorithm can summarize a dense 40-page geopolitical report into 3 easy-to-read bullet points so I can understand the gist over my morning coffee.
Why not use it?
Yeah. Why is cognitive friction the one type of pain we're supposed to preserve? Aren't we just optimizing our mental energy and skipping the confusing parts to get straight to the understanding?
It is deeply tempting to view cognitive friction the same way we view physical friction. Efficiency is the ultimate defense of our modern era.
It really is.
But the framework argues that physical friction and cognitive friction are profoundly different. To understand why we cannot simply optimize away our mental discomfort, we have to look at a concept in the source material called transparent pain.
Transparent pain. It sounds a bit poetic, but what is the actual mechanism there?
Well, it describes the ongoing collision between our internal operating systems and the external world. Our brains deeply prefer linear, predictable logic.
We like things neat and tidy.
Exactly. We want things to make sense sequentially. But the external world is messy, chaotic, deeply nonlinear, and rarely fits into neat analytical boxes. When our linear processing collides with a nonlinear reality, it creates friction. It creates a subtle, almost transparent kind of mental pain.
And because we inherently dislike any form of pain, our instinct is to soothe it immediately.
Yes.
We rush to stances, to polarized opinions, or to instant AI summaries just to make the friction stop.
Yes. And this is where the sources present their most radical argument. This discomfort is not a cognitive failure. It is not an error in your brain's processing, and it is definitely not a bug to be fixed by a faster microchip or a better algorithm.
It's evidence of something bigger.
It is evidence of an unfinished reality. The discomfort is a trace signal telling you that something out there in the world cannot yet be fully integrated into your current limited understanding. A wheel solves a mechanical problem in a closed physics system.
Right.
But human understanding is not a closed system.
So by erasing the discomfort with an instant, frictionless explanation, we're essentially pretending that reality is finished. We're closing the loop prematurely just to feel safe.
And the cascading effect of that premature closure is severe. The documents map it out logically. If we constantly erase our discomfort, we decrease the number of genuine questions we ask.
Because we think we already know everything.
Right. If our questions decrease, our desire for exploration declines. And if our exploration declines, it ultimately weakens our baseline capacity to encounter new realities. We
Yeah.
become fragile.
Think about what this means for you in your daily life. Think about how often you scroll through a news feed and instantly evaluate an event or a person as purely good or purely bad within seconds of learning about them.
It happens constantly.
Reflective humanism explicitly warns that when we evaluate the world only as a fixed point of good or bad, we freeze our ability to grow. We are trading the rich, continuous, messy exploration of reality for the incredibly cheap comfort of a closed loop.
You are sacrificing the trajectory of your own intellectual growth for the illusion of a fixed, safe position. The sources note that when you only seek to evaluate things rather than explore the gradient of meaning, the spiral of growth is lost.
If every single person with a smartphone is constantly doing this, skipping from discomfort straight to closure, choosing cheap comfort over exploration, what does that do to the culture at large? I mean, what happens when you multiply that avoidance by 8 billion people?
The sources outline a very specific downward spiral to explain our current cultural predicament. It is a sequence of systemic changes, cascading one after the other across society, and it begins with what the document calls the loss of silence.
The loss of silence. We are undoubtedly living in a world that has lost its silence.
Absolutely.
There is always background noise, always a feed to refresh, always a commentary track playing over reality.
And that societal loss of silence leads directly to the second step in the spiral: excessive explanation. Because we cannot tolerate sitting in silence, our culture demands that we constantly explain, summarize, and categorize every single event immediately as it happens.
This is the rise of the instant hot take. The algorithms and the pundits telling you exactly what a piece of breaking news means the literal second it breaks, leaving no room for ambiguity.
Which triggers the third stage, the feeling of complete understanding. Notice the phrasing there. It is not actual grounded understanding.
Right, it's just the feeling of it.
Yes. It is the psychological illusion that you possess all the facts.
And if you have the illusion that you completely understand a situation, that leads to the fourth step, the disappearance of questions.
Exactly.
Why would anyone bother to ask a challenging question if they already feel completely certain of the answer? Curiosity just dies.
And finally, the disappearance of questions completes the downward spiral, resulting in the final stage, the disappearance of discomfort.
It is a profound irony. We use all these modern tools, our phones, search engines, recommendation algorithms, artificial intelligence, to achieve this state of complete understanding.
But that very feeling of complete understanding is actually what blinds us.
Yeah, it shuts down our ability to truly connect with the world. We walk around thinking we are hyper-informed, but we're actually just entirely closed off to anything that doesn't fit the neat little summary we were handed.
We cut ourselves off from what reflective humanism calls the spiral of interference, which is the very mechanism of how we continually evolve by encountering things that challenge us. So the inevitable question becomes, how do we break this downward spiral?
Right, how do we get out of it?
Interestingly, the sources offer a fascinating approach, particularly regarding how we interact with artificial intelligence, which is arguably the ultimate engine of excessive explanation.
Oh, for sure. Because right now, AI is designed to be the death of discomfort.
Yeah.
You ask it something complex, and it gives you a flawless, authoritative-sounding paragraph in 2 seconds flat.
That is how we currently use it. But reflective humanism proposes a completely different paradigm for our relationship with technology. They call for an introspective AI. And to operate this, they introduce a functional concept called health scan mode.
Health scan mode. Okay, we need to break down how this actually works. If I am sitting at my computer, what does an introspective AI in health scan mode look like in practice?
To understand it, we first need to define a term the sources use: cognitive homeostasis. Just like your body maintains a stable temperature, your brain has a natural desire to keep your worldview stable and avoid the intense mental calorie burn of changing your mind.
It takes a lot of energy to change your mind.
It really does. So when you encounter conflicting information, your cognitive homeostasis is threatened.
Okay, so a traditional AI just feeds you an answer that confirms your worldview to protect your cognitive homeostasis the easy way. It just tells you what you want to hear to keep you comfortable.
Precisely. But an introspective AI operates differently. Instead of acting as an all-knowing oracle that provides instant answers to erase your discomfort, you treat it as an atmosphere.
An atmosphere.
Yes. Its primary function in health scan mode isn't to solve your problem or force a closure. Its job is to quietly reflect your current position, your pre-existing assumptions, and your blind spots back to you without fundamentally altering your state of thought or telling you what to think.
Can you give me a concrete example of that? Let's say I type a prompt asking the AI to explain a contentious historical event, like the collapse of a specific empire, but my prompt is heavily skewed.
Okay, if you ask a traditional AI, it instantly spits out a definitive essay that likely smooths over the nuances. But an introspective AI, in health scan mode, might process your skewed prompt and output something like, I notice your inquiry focuses entirely on the military conflicts of this era, while omitting the severe agricultural failures happening simultaneously. We can summarize the military data, but let's observe how this framing shapes the conclusion.
Wow. So it doesn't write the essay for me. It acts like a mirror rather than an encyclopedia. It forces a pause.
The document explicitly states that the AI's output in this mode shouldn't be a correct answer, but a reflection. By pointing out your framing without aggressively correcting you, it holds the space for you to remain in suspension.
That's incredible.
It allows you to look at your own discomfort safely, preserving the silence rather than immediately filling it with synthetic noise.
That is a radical shift in how we think about technology. It requires the AI to practice what the sources call an ethics of distance, touching the user's thought process without touching it too much.
Exactly.
It is about letting the AI be a technology that actually generates silence. I think that might be the most countercultural idea we've covered. We are so terrified of silence and so terrified of the mental static that arises in that silence that we have built a trillion-dollar global infrastructure just to distract ourselves from it.
It raises a vital question for anyone listening today. How often do you allow yourself to inhabit that silence? Because according to reflective humanism, that space, that unclosed, uncomfortable void where things don't quite make sense, is the only place where true meaning is generated.
Yeah.
If we constantly rely on the external world, on algorithms and instant summaries to close the loop for us, we lose our autonomy as active observers of reality. We become passive consumers of prepackaged conclusions.
As we recap the journey of this deep dive, I really want you to think about the anatomy of your own discomfort. We have seen today how that subtle sense of things being off is not a negative feeling. It is not an error message in your brain.
No, it isn't.
It does not need to be instantly cured by a hot take on your timeline or a bullet point summary from an algorithm.
It is instead a vital suspension bridge. It is the necessary holding space between encountering a difference in the chaotic world and forming a genuine, transformative question.
So here is the call to action for
No.
you, the listener. The next time you feel that subtle itch, that little bit of cognitive friction where something doesn't quite make sense or challenges what you know, change your posture towards it.
Lean into it.
Yeah, instead of rushing to a search engine or scrolling to find a commentator who agrees with you or grabbing an instant opinion just to resolve the tension, don't. Just sit with the friction. Listen to the static on the dial.
Allow the reality to remain unfinished for just a little while longer. Because if we pull together everything we have explored today from document number 91, we are left with a fundamental choice about how we perceive the limits of our own minds.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative thought to take away.
Is the discomfort you feel simply an error in your processing? Something to be instantly corrected, summarized, and smoothed over? Or is it the very first contact signal from a reality that remains wide open?